Did she though? Forward family, it is I, BigBossFabo, Forward Fabian. I'm back with a video for you guys this evening, man. I'm pretty much just posting as much as I can, as frequent as I can. Definitely been adding a lot of different other, content to the channel. Been doing a lot of these horror reactions, horror fan reaction. You guys have been, pretty receptive to it. So obviously, my plan with the channel is to reveal certain bits and pieces of myself, whether it's hobbies, likes, things, that I just enjoy, and incorporate that in reaction form. Horror, thriller, I enjoy that. I'll be like basketball stuff, I may add basketball reaction, etc. Aside from the point, but generally speaking, just know as we grow on this channel, I'm gonna expand the content a whole lot more, especially since I'm posting a whole lot more nowadays, you know what I mean? It's with as much content as I'm putting on the channel, why not diversify it a little bit? But today we have another scary story, and this is from Southern Cannibal. He isn't a reactor, or he isn't a horror story narrator that I've reacted to just yet, and this will be my first one on the channel. He's in that lane, as well as Unit 522, Mr. Nightmare, Nightmare Files, yeah, man, let's get into this reaction. So like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FortWorthFabian. This video is actually titled 4 True Scary Stranger Encounter Horror Stories. And these are true stories, man. The thing is, with a lot of these channels, a majority of these stories are true because they're sent in, by users, subscribers, fans, based off real experiences. At that point, you got to kind of make that judgment for yourself if it's true or not. But this is True Scary Stranger Encounters. So let's get into this reaction, man. Southern Cannibal.
A few years ago, my family and I went on a week-long vacation to Cape Cod, Massachusetts. One evening after dinner, we ended up going down to the beach. Not to swim, but just to take a stroll and play around on the beach. While my sisters, some friends, and I were down by the water, we kept noticing this flash right from behind us. Before long, we realized a really creepy dude was actually taking pictures of us. Once we figured this out, we ran to our parents and started telling them. At this point, he jumped back into his van, only to re-emerge a few seconds later with a totally different camera to begin taking pictures of random scenery. I guess he was doing this to cover up what we had just witnessed. Probably in case we confronted him.
Boy, you can't.
After we told our parents, we began to head back to the house that we were staying at, and we wrote down his license plate. You weren't able to see in any of the windows because they all had curtains over them. We never ended up reporting it to the police though, because we just weren't 100% sure of anything. Well, a few years later after that event, that very same man was actually on the news. As it turns out, he was apparently arrested for attempted kidnapping, and he had rope, a bat, and duct tape in his van, as well as a bunch of pictures of children. I'm honestly really glad that nothing happened to any of us that day, but it's...
Bro, in today's world, stuff is so weird nowadays that when I have children, bro, I'm gonna be on them like a hawk. You are not, me growing up, I was walking to school, riding my bike, all types of stuff, but we lived in a fairly safe neighborhood, so to speak, but you can't just assume everywhere is safe, man. A majority of these neighborhoods where all these pedos and kidnappers are, they take kids from the safest neighborhoods. That's not the hood or the projects or nothing like that, bro. They're taking these clean washed, preppy, super, not even middle to high class kids sometimes, you know what I mean? So it can vary, it can depend, but you can't just assume you always good. But me, I think I'm gonna be super overprotective. Not smothering in a sense, but I'm not gonna have my kid walking to school, bro. You know what I mean? No matter how close it is. I'm gonna try to do my best to drop them off, pick them up. In addition to that, maybe they can ride the bus, stay in a big group of kids and stuff like that. But man, I'd rather be safe than sorry.
It's really freaky to see later down the line and realize what could have happened. During my life, I've had a lot of creepy things happen to me, but I've never been so close to almost being kidnapped before. I'd gotten home from school and I felt like going to the store to get some dinner. During this time, I walked around a lot, so I didn't really think of anything weird or really creepy happening to me. I lived pretty close to a grocery store, so I thought I would be in and out and get back home before it hit dark. I left around 5:45 p.m. and I told my parents that I was about to leave and to text me if they wanted me to get them anything. I was really happy to go out and take my sweet time on getting what I wanted. Walking really helps clear my mind, and going into grocery stores and looking around just really calms me down. So I thought I was going to have a fun night. I was only planning on getting a few small things while I was in the store, so I wouldn't have to worry about the bag breaking while walking home. When I was almost done, I saw that my dad had texted me and said he wanted me to get some milk. I thought to myself, well, I can just put it in 2 bags. That should work. But I knew that my time getting home would be slowed down a little bit because I had also bought
I ain't gonna lie, this background music is throwing off the horror of it, like the creepiness, the scariness of it, because the music does not fit the mood. Like, I'll tell you right now, I'm not creeped out in any sense or shape or the form just because of the music right now.
2-liter bottle of soda for myself. I didn't really think anything bad of it because my neighborhood is thought as a really safe neighborhood. I mean, besides the burglaries that sometimes happen pretty often. While I was on my way home, my best friend at the time had called me, and it was getting really late. So I realized that it would probably be for the best if someone was on the phone with me while I made the walk home. This happened out in October, so there were not that many people out walking. I think I'd only saw about 2 people that were walking besides me that night. I really wanted to walk with one of those people that I saw because I get a little spooked out at night, but she was walking in the other direction.
That sounds more like it. There you go.
I wasn't really planning on walking around
keys.
so late, so I wasn't expecting it to start getting dark while walking. I have a really bad habit of taking too long in the grocery store, and I guess I forgot about that when I decided I would walk to and from it. When I was probably about 7 minutes away from my house, there was this big black car that was driving around, and it started to drive on the sidewalk right towards me. My first initial thought was, this person is a psychopath, but then I remembered that this lady had actually asked me if I needed a ride when I was leaving the store, so I thought that this person probably just wanted to give me a ride as well. My best friend who was on the phone with me at the time was now asleep, so I now didn't have anyone's help to give me advice, and I just knew that I didn't have enough time to text my parents. My parents always taught me that if something happens, I'm to tell them or call them, so calling 911 just wasn't in my mind at the time. I looked over at the car and I saw that the person was now getting out of their car. I decided to start speed walking instead of running to avoid them from knowing that I was suspicious of them. This is when I then saw what the person looked like. He was white, tall, and really heavy looking. I saw that he had a short beard and a mustache, and he looked like he was wearing a gray shirt and pants.
He's a pedo.
During this time, it was really dark, so I wasn't able to see what color his pants were. When I turned to look back, I was totally freaking out. I had a million different thoughts going through my head, and I just didn't know what to do. I then saw that he was opening his passenger door and grabbing what I am pretty sure to be a baseball bat. My body then turned into fight or flight mode, and very thankfully, I chose not to fight. I started to run as fast as I could and kept looking back ever so often. I saw that he was chasing after me now, and I started to scream. Thankfully, he didn't seem like a fast runner because he wasn't that close to me. I don't know why, but I only screamed twice, and I actually still had the groceries in my hands. Which was a pretty stupid decision if you ask me, but in my defense, I wasn't really thinking at the time. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. When I finally got to the road that my house was on, I had looked back and I saw that his truck was still there, but I didn't see him. So I decided to keep running to my house just in case he was still after me. As I got closer to my house, I kept looking back to see if he was there. I really didn't want to risk him seeing where I lived and trying to do some really dumb shit later on. Thankfully he wasn't there, and I finally made it safely to my house. I ultimately decided to not tell my parents because I just didn't really want them to start being overly controlling and not letting me have my freedom anymore.
That's how kids end up dying. Be like, I didn't want to tell my parents. It's like, bro. Then when you go missing the next day, they're going to have no idea if any inkling as to where you could be or why or what's even going on, bro. I get sometimes you don't want to always tell your parents stuff, but when it's like a life or death situation, you're in danger. You know, you kind of just, especially if you a kid still. It's one thing if you like grown and you moved out the house. You know what I mean? Like, but if you live under your parents' roof, you essentially putting them in danger. Because if you got a stalker or a pedo and he's after you, let's say hypothetically he know where you live now. But you didn't tell your parents that somebody was chasing you or walking, you know, after you when you went home. Let's say he decided to break in one night. You know what I mean? Like, then you put everybody in danger at that point. Whereas if you probably tell your parents, they probably would, of course, call the police or try to file a report. And, you know, it's aware. People are more cautious. You may have neighborhood watch. You may have people, you know, a cop posted outside the house. Like, all types of, like, preventative measures. But when you say nothing, man, you're doing everybody a disservice.
Ever since this happened to me, I've been absolutely terrified of the thought of walking at night. But I'm starting to get back into it, and I think I'm going to buy some pepper spray really soon.
Sounds like a great idea.
So the story happened to me when I was about 8 years old. I'm 31 now, and I'm a female. My elementary school would give students these catalogs that had different kinds of chocolate in them to sell to people every year so that we could raise money for something. Honestly, I don't even remember what we were raising money for because this was so long ago. But I used to really love to sell the chocolate out of that catalog to my family and friends. We also used to have bake sales and stuff like that. It was really a lot of fun to me as a kid. But anyways, one day me and my sister, who was 10 at the time, decided to go through a couple of our neighborhoods and knock on random people's doors to try and make some sales. Well, that was a big mistake. We didn't realize at the time how dangerous it was for two little kids to go from door to door to complete strangers' houses with no adult supervision. But we had soon found that out. We were a little bit successful though. I made a few sales actually, and so did my sister, so that really motivated us to keep on going. Me and my sister knocked on one of our neighbor's door, and the short, kind of chubby man with brown hair answered the door. He said,
"How can I help you?"
And he looked to be in his mid-30s. We told him that we were trying to raise money for our school and that we're selling these goodies out of this catalog, and we asked him if he'd like to buy something. He looked at us kind of hesitantly, and he asked us weird questions like, what school did we go to, how old we were, do our parents know that we're here right now, and really questionable things like that. Of course, we lied and told him yes, but in reality, they had no idea what we were doing. I think I actually do remember him looking at the catalog for a few seconds, then giving it back and saying,
"No thank you."
He wasn't mean or anything, but he wasn't the friendliest guy either. So we just said okay and began to walk away. But right before we did, he then said,
"I really wouldn't go to anyone else's houses if I were you. You guys should start heading home. I don't think it's a good idea for you kids to be knocking on random people's doors like this. There's a lot of weirdos out here. You kids should just go home before it starts getting dark."
And then he just shut the door. He didn't slam it or anything, but he didn't seem like he was a really friendly or social guy. So we were really glad to leave his porch. And of course, we didn't listen to him and kept knocking on people's doors. Maybe about 30 minutes later, me and my sister decided that we were going to go just a few more houses. We would then head home afterwards because we knew that our mom would be looking for us soon. She had already thought that we were at our friend's house, and we didn't want her to find out that we weren't, so we had to make it quick.
What?
But what happened next
See what I mean, man? See what I mean with this? Like, honestly, I ain't gonna lie, I've been a kid before. And if I was doing something that was up to no good, of course I didn't want to tell nobody or my parents. But y'all are literally going door to door to selling, like, whatever y'all selling for school. It's not like y'all going clubbing or y'all going to hang out at a friend's house while you're grounded or something. You know what I mean? Y'all literally doing something that's legitimate and basic. But y'all wanted to lie to your mom about what y'all was doing. What? Bro, I'm a peaceful, loving dude, but in these scenarios, man, they be asking for it. I I got no kind of sympathy in that point, empathy, bro. It's like, bro, you asking for it, cause you sound real dumb.
Never forget. Me and my sister decided to split up. I went to one house and she went to the one next to it, but we were still close by. I went to the house and I knocked on the door. This older white lady answered the door. She had long, kinda grayish hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and I think she had some sneakers on, from what I can remember. She looked to be in her late 50s, maybe even older. She was really friendly though. She had a really big smile on her face, and she then said, "Hey, how can I help you?" I then told her about the catalog and I asked her if she wanted to buy anything. Basically the same line that I used for all the others. She kind of giggled a little bit and just disregarded my question. Then she asked me if I was alone. I then told her, "No, my sister's at the neighbor's house." She asked me how old I was, and I told her my age. Then I noticed her looking at me for a few seconds, then asking if I wanted some candy. I thought it was kind of weird that she didn't answer my question, but I mean, I was an 8-year-old kid.
I'm good.
Of course I wanted some candy. So I said yeah.
You're an 8-year-old kid. You going door to door? Bruh, where are your parents at? They need a lesson in child protection.
Thinking that she was just gonna go get it and bring it to me at the door. But she had actually told me to come in her house because the candy was inside. I felt kind of weird about it, so I told her that I should go get my sister first. She then said, "Oh, come on. It's just right here. It'll be really quick. I just want to give you some candy, sweetie. That's all." But I mean, if it was really just right there like she said, then why couldn't she just hand it to me at the door? That was a huge red flag. I still felt a little bit weird about it, but being the young and naive 8-year-old that I was, I said okay and began to step into her house. Literally right before I can get my second foot in the door, my sister came out of nowhere and grabbed me by the collar of my shirt, yanking me back so fast that she choked me a little bit. She pulled me down the stairs and off the ladies' porch, and we took off running out of the neighborhood. I remembered that when we finally felt it was safe, we stopped to catch our breath and I was crying. I guess that I was scared or felt bad about the whole situation or something. That's never happened to me before, so I really had no idea that what I did was wrong. My sister sat me down and wiped my tears, and she told me that she heard the entire thing. She had actually walked over to the lady's house when she was done next door, and that's when she heard her asking me questions about my age and if I was alone. She then hid on the side of the house just listening to her. Then when she saw her trying to get me to come into her house for the candy, that's when she freaked out and then pulled me off the porch and we ran. My sister was a little bit older than me, so she knew a bit better than I did. She told me that in her class a couple days ago, they had apparently watched a video about kids' safety and how to know the signs of a kidnapper or pedophile. And the number one thing that they use to lure in kids is candy. So my sister knew right then that something wasn't right. She really did save my life that day. I guess we should have listened to the man after all. I really do think that he was a guardian angel trying to deliver that message to save my life. I just wish we would have listened. I am beyond glad that my sister watched that video and had that discussion in her class. I think that it's really important that adults talk about these things with kids, at home and at school. I still to this day wonder what the hell that lady was planning on doing to me. Why did she want me to come into her house so bad? Why did she want to give me candy? Why did she want to know how old I was and if I was alone? What if my sister wasn't there to pull me off that porch when she did? And on top of all of that, no one even knew where we were. So if something were to happen to me or even the both of us, no one could have saved us. That's a really scary thought. My guardian angel was definitely watching over me that day. But back to that creepy lady. For some reason, I have a strong gut feeling that she wasn't alone in that house. And I have a really good feeling that whatever...
I would have reported her, but I guess at that point you can't really report her, right? Because it's like, it's all assumption based at that point. What does she really do? Invite you inside? You know what I mean? You can't really say at that point that she was willing to kidnap you. So I guess there's no real probable cause or anything like that.
She had planned. It wasn't to give me candy. But I'm just really glad that I never found out what it was.
I'm just really glad you're not an idiot.
So I have a twin and we're very close. We grew up in a small town. Just about everyone knew each other, but that doesn't mean it was entirely safe. We were always taught by our parents to be very wary of strangers and locking doors, as well as never opening the door to strangers. We often stayed by ourselves after school while our parents worked, so we had plenty of experience staying alone. When we graduated from high school, we had moved to the largest city in our state and also attended the state university. We left our home, but we weren't really too worried since we had each other. I guess this is when I share that I don't really know what in the hell made us change our perspective on safety and move into a larger city with greater risks and weirdos. We've had our fair share of weirdos creeping on us, but our stupid asses never locked our doors. The funniest part about this is that we're absolutely crazy about horror films, so I mean, we really should have known better. Right towards our junior and senior year of university, around 2017 to 18, we moved to a cheaper part of the city to save on rent. As
the story just sounds stupider and stupider. Like people, like, whoever giving this story is a plain dummy. But he said, we don't know why we got more protective when we moved to a bigger city. Do the math, the ratio. Like, more populated, wouldn't you think that would mean more at risk or more cases of criminality or being, you know what I mean? Like, but then we were horror fans, but we still left our door unlocked. We should have known better. Boy, is you dumb? Oh boy, you're stupid. And then I practically handed him the knife so that he could kill me with it. But I didn't know what I was doing. You gonna say some dumb shit like that next, boy.
Our part-time jobs at the time only paid so much on campus. It was a really quiet and family area. We also had a tall wooden fenced-in yard.
You said I moved to the poorest neighborhood in town, or a less expensive or a cheaper neighborhood. And it was a very family-oriented. Like, bro, what is you talking about? How was one of the... Let me just get back.
So nobody could see in. The place was old, but it was really cute and it had some character to it. But most importantly, it was really cheap and it was close to a bus stop. It was an old fourplex, and after about a year of living there, our security door broke because of rotting wood, and I guess our landlord never got around to fixing it despite our requests. The front and only door to the apartment was a door with a wooden door with glass. Anyway, I often walked home from late night studying at school around 3 a.m. by myself. I was very careless, and so was my sister. I suppose we never locked our doors because my sister was so forgetful that she just never had her home keys with her. I didn't want to worry about her staying outside for hours until I was out of school or work. We never really thought that anything could happen to us, that was only in the movies. Which is why I will say that it was divine intervention or just crazy luck that for that one night, for no real reason, the door of our apartment was actually locked. It was on a Saturday night. I can't really remember that well what happened before the ordeal, but I think that my sister and I went home after a brief night at a bar having a beer and walking home together. My sister and I never did really have that many friends or acquaintances, let alone tell the one or two friends that we did have where we lived. That was partly because we didn't really have a new or nice place to have anyone over without apologizing. So when we heard our broken and old wooden gate door open right next to our bedroom window at around 4 a.m., we immediately woke up. Not alarmed, but really confused. Shortly afterwards, we had then heard a knock on the door, and it was very persistent too. My stupid ass sister walks with her eyes wide open straight to the door and puts her hands right on the lock and door as she's about to unlock it. I'm right behind her and I'm already seeing red flags. There's a guy in a black hoodie covering his face, and he's hiding his face away from the neighbor's porch lights so that we couldn't see him. It was all happening way too fast, and we had just woken up, so we were thinking he was a rare friend of ours or something. I blurted out for her to stop. I went to go grab my phone in a heartbeat. It was a really small apartment too, so it wasn't too far. I can hear my sister asking this creep who the hell he was. He said in a calm voice,
I think you did that in the wrong order. I think you ask who he is before you try to unlock the door. The first thing she's doing is, oh, it's 4 a.m. Oh, someone's at the door. I gotta open it. Boy, if these ain't the dumbest stories I ever heard. Golly, man, you just asking for it. You sound like the people in the movies that do the dumbest stuff and end up dying first. But like in your mind, you know, this is just a movie. So obviously they gotta act stupid. You know what I mean? But bro, these is real stories. You acting real dumb. At 4 a.m., I'm wiping stuff out of my eye. I don't even have a proper train of thought. You think I'm going straight to the door and not even asking who it is and just opening it? Just listening to these stories is pissing me off, bro.
Just open up.
I was able to see that he was fiddling with his phone, but I was hiding behind the hallway right next to the tiny living room area. No, who the hell are you? My sister then asked. He then proceeded to jiggle the door handle. That's when I told my sister I was calling 911. My heart was just pounding like it never has before. The creep then proceeds to say,
Look, I know you're alone.
He said this with so much ease, it was almost like a whisper. I started freaking the hell out and I began to dial 911 on my phone. My sister starts backing up without removing her eyes from our glass door. She meets me in the hallway and she tells the creepy guy that she's calling 911, but she tells me not to do anything because he's leaving. Sure enough, he simply just says,
Oh, okay.
And then he leaves. The guy even closes our wooden door, which, let me tell you, it's actually like a chore to get that damn thing to close. My sister proceeds to tell me that they left, but I'm still freaking out and I can't calm down. We managed to go back to bed, and sometime in the morning, we begin to make sense of it all. She tells me that when she was close to him, what really threw her off was that he was apparently fiddling with his Spotify playlist, which is a pretty weird thing to do when you're knocking on someone's door. He most likely did this to keep his face down, but my sister caught on quick enough. We ended up calling our parents to inform them on what happened, and of course they totally flip out and they then force us to notify the police. We ended up doing so, and a cop shows up to take our complaint, but can't really do anything about it since they were long gone. My sister at the moment was dating a guy who apparently had a family member that had a high position in law enforcement. He was retired, but we got him to help us out by doing some digging. A little while passes, but her boyfriend then shares the terrifying information with us. I'll try to relay this to the best of my ability since I can really only remember so much about it. My sister's boyfriend had a side gig as a bouncer at the college bar street, and he said he spoke to other bouncers that told him that they had occurrences that day of some creepy hooded dude following young girls in the clubs, and they were getting complaints from them, which is probably how he saw us. God only knows why he didn't make his move when we walked home in the dark. The retired family member was only able to relay a little bit of information, since this wasn't an official case and he could really get in trouble for doing this kind of questioning or research without a warrant. He notified us that there was not only one dude outside our house, but more. Street cameras had indicated that there were two other guys aside from the one jiggling our door handle, waiting right outside the gate next to our bedroom window, most likely to jump out right as we opened the door. I don't know what their mode of transportation was, but I'm sure they had something big enough to fit captives. He never told us the names of the guys, only that they were under suspicion of trafficking women. I don't really know what possessed my sister and I to lock our doors that night. Had it been opened, the guy could have definitely opened it and taken us. Needless to say, we're now very, very paranoid about locking up at night. I'm very grateful things turned out the way they did instead of the alternative. Please be careful about locking your doors or walking alone at night. This shit really does happen, and it's very real.
Yeah, y'all are dummies. So that's 4 true scary stranger encounter horror stories, man. They just sounded dumb because the fact that you just figured out you need to start locking your door. I slapped somebody for that because you sounding real stupid, my boy. You moved to a poor part of the neighborhood, a poor part of the city, and y'all felt like y'all need to lock your doors. What? I don't know, man. I don't know about these stories, man. These stories really upset me, man. But let me know what y'all thought in the comment section below, man. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FortWorthFabian. Road to 50,000 subs, man. I appreciate you guys. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.